The night was coming thick and fast. As time went by, the level of violence increased. The scenes of a girl pleading for help to some officers on the other side of the fence left me very disturbed. Although she was bleeding heavily from her head, no one came and offered her immediate professional medical attention. Everyone was getting very worried about the state of the girl. She seemed to be losing a lot of blood. I thought that she would collapse at any minute. People started to shout to her to move to the opposite direction where the paramedics were. They all shouted loud and fast so as to highlight the emergency of the situation. Luckily, she was not alone. A group of friends surrounded her and escorted her to a place which I couldn't see. Just a few minutes after the girl left, I saw another victim with serious injuries. He was brought in by his friends who were ordered to leave by the police, and he didn't seem well either. At another end of the square, the battle between police and a small group of protesters was still unfolding. They were getting worse. The majority of the protesters, the peaceful demonstrators, suddenly became spectators. This was not what most of us were there for. There was a huge number of demonstrators who were keen to leave, but there was no way out. They were officially kettled under arrest for attending a protest. At this time, many were desperate to leave the square, but all the exits except one were closed. There were rumours that there was a gate at the start of Downing Street that some people were allowed to leave by, but when we got there, we found that it had been stopped. The messages against war were written in white characters on banners with green backgrounds. They were everywhere. While some reminded me of the need to cut the funding for wars around the world, they also reminded me that a war had started right at the heart of this square. The injured were mounting. Journalists, followed by cameramen and bodyguards, rushed to places in order to capture the scenes of people injured. The chants of "revolution, revolution" became more frequent. There was an idea in the air that the Lib Dems would surrender to the pressure and fear of liquidation at the next general election. The events that followed proved that we might have started a revolution, but its outcome would not be clear that day. As the voting time got closer, the majority of demonstrators returned to the place where we spent the afternoon. Some people still had hopes of change. Some people still believed that the Lib Dems, led by Nick Clegg, would decide to stand by the people, by the poor. Still, there was no way we were allowed to leave at this stage. Before the vote, the atmosphere improved a little bit. There was more music and dancing. There were drums that kept people strong. As the evening drew closer, things started to change. I received a call from my mum. She asked if I was warm and safe. The place was very noisy, so I texted and told her that things were okay and that I would be home before midnight. Although most of us knew that the coalition government had enough MPs to see the bill through, there was still a glimmer of hope that the Lib Dem ministers would come to their senses. I still thought that some would avoid the embarrassment of saying something aloud in public and then doing the opposite so soon after getting into power. Then it came to the evening, and for those who came to London to fight with the police, darkness and the kettling were perfect reasons to increase the level of violence. Violence and havoc was soon to take charge of the City of London.